The sun began to rise over the small village where I, Li Wei, spent my days with a hoe in my hands. The smell of damp earth and the singing of birds were constants, yet a feeling of dissatisfaction grew within me with each dawn. While my friends talked about the harvests and plans for the future, I got lost in dreams, imagining a greater purpose that slipped through my fingers. "Li Wei, you're going to waste the day," shouted one of my friends, pulling me back to reality. I smiled without enthusiasm and looked back at the earth. The furrows I was making seemed endless, and life in the village, with its traditions and routines, began to feel like a never-ending cycle. Each day, I wondered if there was something more beyond farming, something that could give meaning to my existence. It was then that, in a casual conversation, I heard rumors about a wise man named Master Zhang. They said he had the power to unveil the mysteries of karma and help people find their way. What intrigued me most was the idea that our destiny could be linked to the date we were born. What would that mean for me? What could I learn about myself and my actions? "You should go see him, Li Wei. It might be what you need," said my friend as he adjusted his straw hat. I just nodded, thinking about how difficult it would be to leave them behind, even for a brief moment. But the idea of discovering more about myself began to gain strength, like a small seed sprouting in fertile soil. So, I decided that the next day, at dawn, I would set out to find the master. The night passed slowly, with my heart racing at each thought of the possible discovery awaiting me. The next day arrived, and with a mix of anxiety and hope, I left the village behind, following the path that would lead me to the wise man's home. The journey was longer than I expected. I walked through lush green rice fields, crossed small streams, and climbed gentle hills. Each step seemed to take me farther away from the monotony of my daily life and closer to something greater. Upon reaching Master Zhang's house, I was immediately enveloped by an atmosphere of peace and serenity. The place was filled with Buddhist symbols, such as statues of Buddha and paper lanterns that danced gently in the wind. I knocked on the door, and after a few moments, a deep, calm voice replied, "Come in, young one." The door slowly opened, revealing an elderly man with long white hair and eyes that seemed to see beyond my surface. He observed me for a moment, as if reading my soul, and then gestured for me to enter. "You are Li Wei, are you not?" he asked with a soft but firm tone. I simply nodded, surprised by his ability to know my name. "What brings a dreamer like you to me?" I could feel a lump in my throat as I tried to articulate my words. "Master Zhang, I come in search of answers. I feel my life lacks purpose, and I heard you could help me understand more about my karma and the date of my birth." The master smiled, as if his words were a song he had sung before. "Karma is like a river that flows, Li Wei. It is shaped by our past actions and guides us on our path. And your birth date? It is a key, a clue to the lessons you need to learn in this life." "But Master, I don't understand. What does that mean for me?" I asked, feeling anxiety rise within me. Master Zhang looked at me with a penetrating gaze, and as he stood up to retrieve a small object from a shelf, he replied, "Your birth date is a reflection of your being. Tell me, when were you born?" "I was born on the 15th of the 3rd month," I replied, hoping this would be enough to satisfy his curiosity. He smiled again, but his expression was now serious. "The numbers you mentioned hold profound meanings. The number 1 represents new beginnings, while 5 signifies change, and 3 symbolizes creativity and expression. Together, they form a powerful combination. You are destined to learn the art of transformation and express your true essence." I listened attentively, absorbing each word like a drop of water in a desert. "And how do I do that, Master? Where do I start?" He approached me, placing his hand on my shoulder. "The first step is to accept that you are on a journey. I can guide you, but you must be willing to look within yourself and confront your truths. Are you prepared for this journey, Li Wei? I hesitated for a moment, but something inside me already knew the answer. Yes, Master, I am ready. Then come with me. Let's begin to understand what karma means for you and how you can shape it into something beautiful, he said as he made his way to the door. I followed him, feeling that something important was about to happen. As we walked, I couldn't help but feel that the life I had left behind was still tied to me, but with each step, freedom felt closer. The desire to understand my past and shape my future propelled me forward. In that moment, I realized that the journey was just beginning. Uncertainty still lingered, but so did a new hope. What I didn't know was that discovering who I truly was about to take me to places I could never have imagined. The gentle morning breeze caressed my face as I walked alongside Master Zhang through the forest. The earthy smell of moisture in the soil mingled with the fresh aroma of green leaves around us. I felt that each step we took toward the unknown was a step toward a new understanding of myself. The Master, with his serene walk and tranquil gestures, seemed to be an extension of nature itself, so connected to the environment around him. Li Wei, he began, his voice soft like the murmur of a stream. Do you understand what your karma means? I don't know much about it, Master, I replied, trying to organize my thoughts. I've only heard stories, but I never really understood. Zhang stopped and turned to me, his deep eyes seeming to penetrate my soul. Karma is the sum of your past actions, and those actions shape your life in the present. Every choice you make, every word you say, creates waves that reverberate through time. Your birth date is a key, a symbol that can help you unlock these truths. But how can I know what my past actions have brought me? I asked, feeling a mix of curiosity and anxiety. He smiled. The answer lies within you. We just need to look a little closer. Let's walk further. We continued our path, and I lost myself in thought. The idea that my actions could have such deep and far-reaching consequences was daunting. But at the same time, there was a spark of hope. I could change. I could learn to act differently. After a while, we found an open space in the forest where sunlight filtered through the canopy of trees. The sight was breathtaking, and I paused to absorb the beauty before me. Master, this is wonderful, I said, admiring the scene. Yes, he replied. Nature is a great teacher, but remember, even in this place of peace, karma is present. Look at how the flowers and trees interact. They depend on each other to grow. Such is life. As I meditated on his words, we spotted a figure in the distance, a solitary silhouette sitting in the shade of a tree. As we approached, I realized it was an old hermit with long grey hair and a disdainful expression on his face. Next to him lay a fallen traveler with an injured leg begging for help. Master, he needs help, I said, feeling a wave of compassion. Zhang shook his head slowly. Not everyone is willing to help, Li Wei. Let's observe. The traveler, with a trembling voice, pleaded, Please help me. I'm hurt and can't continue my journey. The hermit, however, crossed his arms and coldly replied, Not my problem. Everyone must carry their own burden. I felt a knot form in my stomach. But Master, how can he be so indifferent? He has the ability to help. Zhang merely watched, saying nothing. Silence settled between us as the scene unfolded. The desperate traveler tried to drag himself forward, but without success. After a few moments, the hermit stood up, unconcerned, and began to walk away. Life is hard. Learn to accept that, he said without looking back. That is cruel, I murmured, feeling a rising anger. How can someone act like that? This is an important lesson, Li Wei, Zhang replied, placing a hand on my shoulder. The refusal to help is not just an individual choice. It is a choice that reverberates in the universe. What you witnessed today is a clear demonstration of the impact of ego and lack of compassion. Karma is not limited to ourselves. It extends to everyone around us. When you refuse to help, you are not only hurting the other, but also yourself. "Oh, but what can I do?" I asked, frustrated. "I'm just a young person seeking answers. How can I change all of this?" Zhang smiled and his eyes sparkled. "Start with small actions, Li Wei. Every act of kindness counts. By helping others, you also help yourself. The true power of karma lies in the generosity and love you offer to others." "I understand, Master," I said, feeling determination grow within me. "I promise I will try to be more generous." We continued our walk, and Zhang's words resonated in my mind. The scene of the hermit and the traveler lingered with me, and I couldn't help but think of how many times I hesitated to help others out of fear, insecurity, or selfishness. It was a truth I needed to confront. "Li Wei," Zhang suddenly said, interrupting my thoughts. "What did you feel when you saw that injured man?" "I felt sad and frustrated," I replied. "I wanted to help him, but it seemed like no one cared." "That is a common response," he said. "Often what we experience in others is a reflection of what is within us. What you saw today is an invitation for you to look more deeply at your own attitudes. By recognizing your hesitation to help, you can find a path to transformation." "So, does that mean I also have a part of the blame?" I asked hesitantly. "It's not blame, but rather an opportunity for growth," he corrected. "We all have our weaknesses, but it is in the challenges that we find the strength to change." As we walked, the trees around us seemed to dance with the wind, and I felt lighter. Zhang's lessons were beginning to take root in me. The idea that I could make a difference, even if small, was encouraging. After a while, we came across a tranquil stream, its crystal clear waters flowing gently. The sound of the water was soothing, and I decided it was a good place to reflect. "Master," I began, "how can I apply all this in my life? How can I be the change I want to see?" Zhang sat down by the stream, and I followed suit. "Change begins with intention," he said. "Make a commitment to yourself to be kinder, more considerate. When you encounter someone in need, remember the traveler from today. Every act of compassion is a step towards more positive karma." "I promise, Master," I replied, feeling a warmth grow in my heart. "I will try to be more generous and help others whenever I can." "This is the essence," he said, looking at me with approval. "Life is a journey, and every step you take is an opportunity to learn and grow. The important thing is that you are willing to face your fears and open your heart." In that moment, I realized that my journey was just beginning. There was so much to learn, and I was ready to face the challenges that would come. What the hermit had done was not just a lesson about selfishness, but a call to action for me. I wanted to be different, and with Zhang's guidance, I hoped I could be. "Let's continue, Li Wei," Zhang said, standing up and extending his hand to me. "The world is full of lessons, and each one teaches us something valuable. The journey is long, but each step brings us closer to our true essence." With a new purpose in my heart, I followed alongside the Master, determined to embrace compassion and generosity at every opportunity that arose. The forest seemed more alive than ever, and I knew I was about to discover much more about myself and the world around me. The gentle morning breeze caressed my face as Master Zhang and I walked toward the village. The sun was beginning to rise on the horizon, tinting the sky with a soft orange that gradually transformed into a vibrant blue. I was nervous, a mix of anxiety and anticipation pulsed in my chest. The mission that Zhang had proposed seemed grandiose, finding a source of water for those needy villagers. It was an immense responsibility, and I wondered if I was truly up to the task. "Li Wei, Sometimes what seems like a great challenge can turn into an opportunity for growth, the master said, as if he could read my thoughts. His eyes, always wise and serene, shone with a calm light. Don't forget that true generosity begins when you put yourself in someone else's shoes. I understand, Master, but what if I fail? What if we can't find the water? My voice trembled a bit and I couldn't hide my insecurity. Zhang paused for a moment and looked at me. What matters is not immediate success, but the effort you put into your actions and the intention behind them. The journey is as valuable as the destination. I continued following him, each step more confident, but still struggling against the doubt lurking in my mind. As soon as we arrived at the village, I was greeted by a heavy air of despair. People were gathered around a dry well, their faces marked by worry and thirst. The sight of those vulnerable people touched me deeply. "Hello, villagers," Zhang greeted with a welcoming smile, and some of them shyly returned the gesture. "This is my apprentice, Li Wei. We are here to help." An elderly man with wrinkled skin and tired eyes approached. "There is no hope left, Master. The drought has hit us, and we haven't found water in weeks. Our children cry from thirst." I felt a pang of pain in my heart. The despair of that man reflected the anguish I had also felt about my own life. I needed to do something, but what? "Please, show me where you usually look for water," I asked, trying to hide my hesitation. The elderly man nodded, and we began to walk together, with Zhang observing in silence. As we walked, I listened to the villagers' accounts of their frustrated efforts. Each story I heard weighed on my heart. I felt the responsibility piling up on my shoulders. What could I do to help? The idea of failure haunted me. As soon as we reached a small valley, the man pointed to a place where they had dug a hole. Here we tried, but found nothing, just dry earth. Hearing his words, a feeling of determination began to grow inside me. I looked up at the sky, which was now completely clear, and took a deep breath. What did I have to lose? This was the moment to act. I looked at the man, who was anxiously awaiting an answer. "Let's try again," I declared, my voice echoing more firmly than I expected. "If we don't find water here, we will explore further. We need to unite and search together." He hesitated, but hope was beginning to shine in his eyes. "Do you really believe we can find water?" "I believe," I replied, and the words seemed to resonate not only within me, but also in the minds of the other villagers who were with us. A murmur of encouragement began to spread among them. In the following days, I worked tirelessly alongside the villagers. Together we dug holes and explored the area in search of signs of water. Solidarity began to blossom among us, and for the first time, I felt part of something greater. Sweat dripped down my face, but each drop seemed to purify my soul. One morning, while we were on a small hill, I spotted something I hadn't noticed before. A slight depression in the ground, as if the earth was slightly sunken. My heart raced. "Look!" I shouted, pointing to the spot. "Let's dig here!" The villagers joined me, and the energy was contagious. The ground was hard, but together we managed to dig faster than I expected. Amid laughter and encouragement, hope seemed to grow with each shovel stroke. Finally, after hours of hard work, a soft sound, like flowing water, began to echo from beneath the earth. We all stopped abruptly. The old man was by my side, tears in his eyes, and I could hardly believe what was happening. It's water," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. And then we dug a little more until the water began to gush in a small stream. The joy was like a ray of sunshine illuminating a cloudy day. The villagers began to shout with happiness, and I let myself be carried away by the emotion, feeling a wave of fulfillment and love overflowing within me. "We did it!" exclaimed a woman, dancing around the newly discovered spring. I approached the water and touched it. It was pure, crystal clear, and in an instant, all my insecurities dissipated. The generosity I had offered to the villagers returned to me in a way I could never have imagined. "Did you see, Li Wei? What you did here today, is not just about finding water. It's about the unity and love you brought to this village, said Master Zhang, who was by my side with a smile of approval. I could never have done it without all of them, Master, I replied, looking at the joyful faces around me. I learned that by helping others, I also help myself. Exactly. Always remember, true generosity is not just an action, but an attitude that transforms both you and those around you. I looked at the villagers, who were now smiling and dancing around the water spring, and I realized that something deeper was happening. The connection between us had strengthened. We were no longer strangers. We were a community united by a greater cause. What will we do now? I asked, still recovering from the euphoria. Now we must care for and share this blessing with everyone, Zhang replied, his wisdom ever present. What you did here today is a step, but remember that learning never stops. Those words echoed in my mind as I watched joy and hope spread throughout the village. I had entered that place as an insecure young man, but now I felt renewed. What was once just a challenge had become an opportunity not only for the villagers but for me as well. The journey was just beginning. The night enveloped the village in a cloak of tranquility and mystery. The stars shone brightly in the sky, as if they were listening to our thoughts and desires. Master Zhang and I were sitting in a small courtyard, surrounded by an aura of serenity that only meditation could provide. The scent of fresh grass mingled with the gentle night breeze, creating an atmosphere conducive to deep reflections. "Li Wei," the master said, breaking the silence that surrounded us. "What do you wish for your future? What do you truly yearn for?" I thought for a moment, looking at the constellations that seemed to tell ancient stories. "Master, I wish to become a great leader in the village. I want people to look at me as someone who guides them, who inspires them to be better." My words echoed in the vastness of the night, and a wave of expectation coursed through my body. Zhang looked at me with a serious expression, and his voice, though gentle, carried a weight I could not ignore. "Be careful what you wish for, my young one. The ego can be a treacherous master. It can distort your true essence and lead you down paths you wouldn't want to tread. But master, isn't it natural to want to be respected and admired? As a leader, I can make a difference in people's lives." My defense resonated in the stillness, but I knew there was more to his words than I could see at first glance. Yes, Li Wei, the desire to be respected is human. However, it is essential to understand that true leadership is not based on power or status, but on the ability to serve and understand others. The ego can turn you into a tyrant, someone who rules with fear instead of love. Those words pierced my heart like an arrow, and an unease began to form within me. What did I really know about leadership? Until that moment, my vision had been largely superficial, based on images I had constructed from stories I had heard in the village. How can I avoid letting the ego dominate me, Master? Zhang smiled, but there was a seriousness in his gaze. The answer lies in your actions, Li Wei, and for you to understand this, I want to propose a challenge to you. He paused, allowing the anticipation to grow. You must help Chen. The mention of Chen's name made my heart race. Chen, the rival who often opposed me, who always seemed to want to belittle my ideas and opinions. Master, you want me to help my rival? That person who never misses an opportunity to undermine me? Incredulity filled my tone. Exactly. That is the point. To understand the power of empathy and the essence of true leadership, you must look beyond your personal disagreements. Helping Chen is an opportunity for you to transcend your ego and discover what it truly means to be a leader. I felt a mix of anger and confusion. But why should I help someone who doesn't respect me? Wouldn't that be a sign of weakness? Indignation spilled out in words, but deep down, a part of me knew there was something deeper in that lesson. Often, weakness is seen as a sign of strength, True strength lies in your ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand their struggles. It's not just about you, but about connecting with the humanity that exists within all of us. Zhang's gaze was firm, and his conviction made me hesitate. Will you accept the challenge? After a moment of reflection, I took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, Master, I will accept. The days that followed were filled with uncertainties. The idea of helping Chen seemed absurd, yet at the same time, the desire to grow and learn was stronger than the resistance I felt. When I finally decided to visit Chen, my heart raced with anxiety. His simple, modest house was surrounded by a small garden, with flowers that seemed to wilt under the weight of the criticisms we always exchanged. I knocked on the door and waited. Chen opened the door with an expression that mixed surprise and distrust. "What do you want, Li Wei?" His voice was harsh, as if challenging me to be honest. I hesitated for a moment, but then I remembered the Master's words. I came to offer my help. Master Zhang challenged me to do this, and I want to learn. The words came out of me abruptly, as if I were releasing a burden. Chen raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Help me? Why would you do that? Aren't we always in competition?" "Exactly for that reason," I replied, trying to stand firm. "I want to understand what it really means to be a leader, and maybe by helping you, I can learn something valuable." He watched me for a moment and then let out a resigned sigh. "All right then. I'm not going to refuse an offer of help. I'm working on a project for the community, but I'm facing difficulties." Not knowing exactly what to expect, I entered Chen's house. He showed me a series of plants he was cultivating for a community garden, aimed at beautifying the village and providing food for those in need. Looking at the plants, I realized he was not just a rival. He was someone who also cared about the village, but was struggling with his own insecurities. "I'm not sure this is going to work," Chen said, looking at his plants with a gloomy expression. "People don't seem to care. They always prefer to follow you." I looked away, a bit embarrassed. "But you have a good plan, Chen. Maybe if we work together, we can show them what this garden can do." The following days were marked by a joint effort. Chen and I, two souls who had always been on opposite sides, now joining forces for a greater purpose. As we worked, I began to notice details I had never perceived before. He was methodical, had a deep knowledge of plants, and his ideas were creative and innovative. Each day, the tension between us diminished a little more. "Li Wei," Chen said in a moment of reflection during work, "I always thought you were just a dreamer, someone who wants to be admired, but you really care about people. It's different from what I imagined." Those words took me by surprise. "And I see you differently too, Chen. You genuinely care about the village, and that's admirable." The mutual recognition was like a light that began to shine between us. As the project progressed, I realized I was not only helping Chen, but also learning about myself. The competition that used to divide us was transforming into collaboration. With each plant we planted together, with each smile exchanged, my understanding of what it meant to be a leader deepened. Maybe in the end, true leadership isn't about being the best, but about being able to unite people, I said to Chen during a moment of pause, helping them see the value in each other. He smiled, and for the first time I saw in his eyes a reflection of understanding. "Yes, maybe you are right. And who would have thought I would learn this from my greatest rival?" Those words brought us even closer together, and I realized that by helping Chen, I was not only changing his perception of me, but also transforming the way I saw myself. The ego was dissipating, making way for a new understanding of empathy and human connection. That community project was not just work. It was a journey of self-discovery and growth. Each day, the lesson Master Zhang taught me became clearer. True leadership was not a destination to be reached, but a journey that required humility, understanding, and action. And so, as the sun set on the horizon, lighting up the sky with shades of orange and pink, I understood that the previous night under the stars had not just been a moment of meditation, but the beginning of a transformation that, though subtle, was shaping me to become someone who could truly make a difference in the village. As I walked back home, a sense of transformation pulsed within me. The lessons I learned from Master Jiang were solidifying in my mind and heart. I felt more confident in my ability to lead and help others. The faces of the villagers I met, their stories and challenges, were now a part of me. I was a new Li Wei, one who had begun to understand the importance of acting with compassion and generosity. Crossing the wooden bridge that led to my village, I spotted a familiar face. It was Jian, my childhood friend whom I hadn't seen in years. He was sitting by the side of the road, shoulders slumped and head down. The joy that usually lit up his face had vanished. A cold wave hit me as I realized something was not right. "Jian!" I called, approaching him. He slowly looked up and our eyes met. "Li Wei, it's you," he said, a shy smile emerging on his lips, but quickly fading with concern in his eyes. "Yes, it's me. What happened?" "You look different," I replied, trying to disguise the unease building inside me. "I'm going through a tough time," he confessed, his voice choked. "I lost my job at the bakery, and because of that I can't pay the bills. I'm worried about my family." Those words resonated in my heart. I remembered the lessons of generosity I learned from the master. "Jian, have you tried talking to the bakery owner? He might have something for you," I suggested, even though I knew the situation was more complex. "I already tried, but he said there are no openings." I don't know what to do," he replied, his eyes watering. I felt a wave of empathy and despair for him. "Listen, I can help you," I declared, feeling determination grow within me. "I have some savings. We can think of a plan together." "Li Wei, I can't accept this. You have your own expenses." Jian hesitated, his pride clearly battling against his need. "Don't worry about that. What are a few coins if I can help a friend? We grew up together, and that's what friends do," I insisted, knowing that my decision to help was more significant than the amount itself. He looked at me, the internal struggle visible on his face. Finally, a small smile appeared. "If you really want to do this, I will accept, but only because it's you." Helping Jian became a priority for me. I started saving more and sharing what I had. I supported him with some of my savings while he looked for a new job. A few days later, I found an ad about a position at a new bakery that was opening in the neighboring village. I mentioned it to him, and his expression of hope was rewarding. "Thank you, Li Wei. You don't know how much this means to me and my family," he said, looking into my eyes with gratitude. "No need to thank me. I'm happy to help," I replied. But for me, the real satisfaction came from seeing my friend regain hope. Generosity was not just an act, it was a way of experiencing life. As we worked together to prepare for his job interview, a sense of purpose enveloped me. I was learning that true happiness comes from being present in the lives of others, from sharing joys and sorrows. What once seemed like a sacrifice was turning into a gift. One night, while organizing some items at home, my eyes fell upon an old box that had been forgotten. Curious, I pulled it closer and opened it. Inside, I found yellowed letters, some photos, and objects that awakened memories of times past. As I examined them, one letter stood out particularly. It was a letter addressed to me, written by my mother. With trembling hands, I opened the letter and began to read. The words were written with such affection, but the message was impactful. She spoke of my birth date and the deep connection she had with a tragic event in our family. Gradually, the story began to unfold in my mind, revealing a past I had forgotten. Li Wei, the letter said, you were born on a day of great significance. Your life is intertwined with the choices we made before you came into the world. A tragic event occurred on the day of your birth, and I have always believed you had a special role to play in our village. My heart raced. What could be so important? Curiosity consumed me, and I continued reading. The letter revealed that a selfish choice had impacted not only my family, but also the community, a decision that led to devastating consequences. How can this be true? I murmured to myself, feeling the weight of the revelation. I not only carried the responsibility of my life, but also a legacy of pain and regret that had been passed down to me. The realization that my birth date was not just a coincidence, but a sign of something greater left me stunned. The night wore on, and the moon shone brightly through the window, illuminating the yellowed paper. Anger and sadness mixed in my chest, but a new determination began to rise. I couldn't change the past, but I could use what I learned to shape my future. With my decision to help Jian, I was starting a path of healing, not just for him, but also for myself and for the village. The letter became a constant reminder that our actions have deep repercussions. What I did in my past was linked to something larger, and now, by helping Jian, I was beginning to unravel the ties of karma that had bound me. That night, as I prepared to sleep, I felt a different weight in my heart. It was not just the burden of the past, but the hope for a brighter future. I was ready to face whatever would come next, understanding that every choice I made could impact not just my life, but the lives of everyone around me. And so, as I closed my eyes, I dreamed of a future where generosity and empathy would guide my steps, where the lessons from Master Zhang would become part of who I am. The past may have shaped my path, but I was determined to be the architect of my destiny. The gentle morning breeze penetrated the forest, bringing with it the damp smell of the earth and the distant sound of singing birds. As I walked, a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings unraveled inside me. The discovery of the old letter had been a punch to the gut. The tragedy that haunted me was connected to a selfish choice from my youth, a thoughtless decision that had reverberated in my life and in the lives of others. The memory of the pain I caused still echoed in my mind, and the weight of regret was becoming unbearable. Li Wei, you seem distant. What's on your mind? Master Zhang's voice cut through the silence. His deep, understanding eyes seemed to read my soul. I found an old letter. It talks about a mistake I made, a mistake that brought pain to many. I can't understand how I could have been so blind, I replied, my voice trembling. Zhang paused and looked at me for a moment, as if weighing my words. Pain is a part of life, my young friend. What matters is not the mistake itself, but what you do with that pain. You can let it consume you, or you can use it as a catalyst for change. But how can I change something that has already happened? How can I fix what I caused? My voice rose, frustration spilling over. You start with acceptance, he replied calmly. Accept that your actions have consequences. And by accepting, you can seek healing, not only for yourself but for others. These words resonated within me. It was as if a light was beginning to flicker in the midst of darkness. I had the ability to make a difference, not just in my life, but in the lives of everyone around me. Upon returning to the village, I was more aware than ever of the impact my actions could have. The faces of the villagers, usually so familiar, now seemed to carry a depth I had not noticed before. Each of them had their own stories, their own burdens. How could I have been so selfish in the past, ignoring their struggles? That night I decided to visit the small house of the old hermit, the man who had refused to help the injured traveler. There was something unsettling about his attitude, something I wanted to understand. When I arrived, I found him sitting on his porch, gazing at the starry sky. "Why didn't you help that man?" I asked, my curiosity overcoming my apprehension. He slowly turned his head, his eyes seeming more tired than I remembered. "What do you know about helping, boy?" Sometimes people need to learn to get up on their own. But what if they can't? What if they are on the brink of death? I pressed on. And what if I am on the brink of death? What would you do? His voice was rough, but there was a spark of curiosity in his eyes. I would try to help. I couldn't just stand by, I replied, feeling the passion rise within me. Then you understand, he murmured, as if reflecting on his own words. But help should not come from the ego. True help is that which comes from the heart, expecting nothing in return. Those words echoed in my mind. My desire to help could not be just a way to relieve my own guilt. I needed to act with true altruism without expecting it to redeem me. The next day, I returned to the master. I understand, Master Zhang. Helping is not just an act, it is an intention. I want to heal my village, but I need to do it with a pure heart. Zhang smiled, a smile that seemed to illuminate the surroundings. Yes, Li Wei, and for that, you must confront your past. The tragic event you discovered was not just a consequence of your actions, but a reflection of the actions of the whole village. Karma is collective, and healing must be as well. I fell silent, absorbing his words. The pain I carried was not just mine. I'd been part of a larger cycle, a cycle that involved everyone in the village. And it was my responsibility to help break that cycle. But how can I do that? I asked, doubt still lingering in my mind. You must become an agent of change. Start by helping those you have hurt. Rebuild the bridges that have been burned. True transformation begins in humility and the willingness to correct your mistakes, he replied, his voice firm and encouraging. With that determination, I decided it was time to confront the past. I gathered the villagers and shared my story. I failed you in the past. My actions brought pain, and now I want to do what is right. I am here to help heal our village. The reactions were mixed. Some looked on with distrust, others with compassion. But in the end, one voice stood out. It was Chen, my rival. If you really want to help, then join us in the irrigation project. We need water, and you have the skills to help us. A knot formed in my throat. I thanked Chen, and from that moment on, we united in a joint effort. Together, we dug, planted, and built. And as we worked side by side, a new connection began to form. The walls that had separated us started to crumble, giving way to empathy and understanding. That night, as the sun set, the gathered village celebrated the new water source. The joy on the villagers' faces was contagious. I looked up at the sky and thought about everything I had learned. Karma, with its intricate webs, connected our lives in ways I could never have imagined. Li Wei, you did well, said the master by my side. But remember, this journey is just beginning. I know, master. And I am ready to continue, I replied, feeling a new hope blossom within me. And so I committed not only to healing the wounds of the past, but to being a beacon of change for my village. With every action, every gesture of kindness, karma transformed, and the true essence of my birth began to reveal itself. The journey was not over, but I was determined to move forward, learning and growing with each step.